All right, here we go. Cool. Welcome, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the State of E-commerce featuring myself, TJ Highland, and Ben Stein. This week, we are really excited to have Troy Johnston of Seller.Tools with us. Troy, how's it going?
Doing good, TJ. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. So a little bit about Troy. He's the co-founder of Seller.Tools, a robust suite of optimization tools that leverage actual Amazon data to help you make more informed decisions and actions on your business. He's actually sold one of his flagship brands for multiple seven figures and quickly moved on to consulting. And I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit. I'll let Troy maybe touch a little bit on himself, but is obsessed with creating data-driven solutions to help Seller.Tools. And I think what's important here is that Troy was and is a seller just like all of you. He's kind of made the progression from seller to consultant to now the developing this platform to help himself, but also help other sellers. So really happy to have you here today and really excited to dive in a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, TJ. Really appreciate it. Great intro. And yeah, as you touched on, what we're really focusing and I'm focusing on now. I'm still, for better or worse, I'm a seller. I try to really grow my technical acumen being in the SaaS side of things. But the truth is I'm a seller. That's kind of my roots, is really understanding Amazon optimization. What's the 80-20? What's going to give me a disproportionate result? But obviously FBA kind of inherently has so much leverage. That's what's the beauty right now in e-commerce and leveraging Amazon.
Well, Troy, that's awesome. And I think, as you just said, selling is in your roots. It gave you this great foundation. It's allowed you to go through the various steps that you have and called career progression or life cycle of a seller, if you will, and develop this great tool, Seller.Tools, which I'm excited to learn a little bit about and learn a little bit more about those, the data that you help sellers leverage to grow. So to kick it off, can you kind of tell us a little bit more about your intro to selling on Amazon, some of the successes, and maybe challenges you've had, and give us a little bit more about your progression?
Yeah, so I started in FBA in 2014, which now, relatively speaking, is a really long period of time. TJ, I know you're shaking your head. You're an old timer like me, some of the OGs, but FBA, and obviously it's changed so considerably over that time. But when I got started, it kind of fell into my lap. I was in a corporate gig at the time at a really cool. It was a really great company, great culture. All the perks, very kind of millennial driven, let's call it, where they were really focused on a good work-life balance. So I had a pretty good gig, but we were always looking, myself and one of my colleagues were kind of looking at side hustles and different opportunities that may be out there, looking at real estate investing, looking at e-commerce. And we saw this program, Amazing Selling Machine, that had popped up. And actually, through one of the real estate investing groups, they were affiliates for this program. So you can see how this is it's very serendipitous. It's like, it just really fell into our lap where an angel investor was interested in backing somebody, buying their initial inventory, giving them some seed capital. And all you had to do was say why you would be a good fit. And on a weekend, I sent like 2-3 paragraphs. So I'm like, let's just try this out. And I won. And brought that angel investor on board, started kicking off the process, let my colleague at the time start to look at some of the materials, kind of work alongside me. And he was far more entrepreneurial. I'm a pretty straight-laced conservative guy. And so we started going down this path and really started building substantial businesses. And, that was really the kickoff of the journey. And it started with one product and 3, then 10. And then at the end, by the time that business was acquired, was roughly 27 SKUs over about 2.5 years. And then, that business was acquired. It was in the health and beauty space. And that really served me, I think, in those early stages to be in a very competitive space, very saturated. Obviously, it was unique times too, where to a degree, FBA was a little bit more unproven, I would say. It had as much of it may potentially have kind of an internet marketing feel now, even more so, where you didn't have these really exceptional examples of everyday people coming in, building a thriving business. But it was a great time to get in, great time to build a business. Transitioned off of that relatively quickly into consulting, advising for 8-figure brands, just by virtue of my network. Was very fortunate for that to kind of fall into my lap too. And that really kind of takes us to today now in the SaaS space. again, through my network, connecting with like-minded sellers that were looking at developing solutions for themselves. And that was really the seed of the idea: is what do we need as a competitive advantage? How can we develop solutions, unique features that we can exploit? That was the sort of the spirit of it initially. It wasn't really meant to be commercially available.
Right.
But by the time I joined, it was, let's make this available to everyone. Let's kind of broaden that vision, and create tools we want to use ourselves. That was always the measure of success. If it's something we use in our businesses, not speaking of myself, even my partners running 7-8 figure businesses, like they've got to be good to make sure you're growing, not maintaining. Maintenance tools, and you can use that to complement, but it's all about growth. What are you doing to really take advantage or realize a competitive advantage?
And that's what I find is a lot of the tools in the online or Amazon selling space were developed by sellers themselves that needed to fix a problem or to address an issue that they had. So that's why I think Seller.Tools is really cool and really important, because it's seller driven.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, that's always our test is this something we really want? And that shows up when we look at our pipeline, our roadmap, other features that we're developing. And sometimes, this is where, having a great team, we kind of bring each other back down to earth, because sometimes we're thinking, again, not speaking of myself, some of my business partners, when they're thinking of 8-figure, these really astronomical goals, we're not necessarily talking to the larger community. And we want to do that because we see the shared opportunity, the really great win-win that we can build by creating solutions that have a broader appeal, but that still let somebody kind of punch up and not just be, because again, the competition isn't going anywhere. The saturate, it's all because the scale of the opportunity is going to lend itself to that competitive atmosphere. And that's where, like I said, for us, our opportunity is exploiting a competitive advantage on behalf of our users.
And I love that. When you talked about you scaling your first brand, it was 27 products in 24 months, which is more than one product a month, which to me sounds like hyper growth and really just expanding upon your brand and that success that you found within the hyper competitive space. As you just said, competition's not going anywhere. We see e-commerce increasing, and I don't believe it's going to stop anytime soon. I think that we are just catching up to the infrastructure that we've built for ourselves and are filling our own shoes, if you will. So, to that point, can you talk about what you see in the competitive landscape these days, and as you are growth focused and you're building tools for growth focused sellers, what they can do to really take advantage of this hyper growth time that we're in?
Yeah, I think right now the emphasis for sellers is really being calculated. Obviously, we're seeing Amazon trying to match this astronomical demand, which creates logistics constraints, obviously. So, the ASIN level limits, the receipt of inventory, the delivery of that, to the end customer. So that poses a few challenges for Amazon, but I think that really for the brand, it emphasizes a really strong emphasis on the ROI, even at the individual unit level. What you're really getting out of that transaction, that potential to build a relationship with your customer. And obviously too, that's, that philosophy we try to apply with features with some of the things we do with ManyChat, where we are building our list. We're obviously catering to ranking efforts, review capture efforts, all that good stuff. But yeah, I think right now, especially where we are in the midst of Q4, what we see is the Amazon response to the global, and I'll say global e-commerce acceleration, where we're seeing what would probably happen in a decade in a like a 6-month period. And so, yeah, sellers really just need to stay tapped in. And that brings us back to the data of really quantifying a lot of the activities in your business, whether it is optimization steps that you take to substantiate your presence, or take up more Amazon real estate. But then also, inventory excellence is making sure that your logistics are lined up, whether you have a 3PL lined up, whether you have enough inventory readiness, you're building that supplier relationship to such a degree where if you're in a queue, is there any preferential treatment you can get? Is there any upside that you can create for your supplier, putting yourselves in their shoes? So it's getting to a place, I think, where that operational excellence is really being stressed on sellers and brands. And some that have the resources, they're already kind of thinking about this and doing this. But those lean operators, those smaller teams, it's a good time to think about segmenting that bandwidth and making sure, yeah, you're thinking about today's problems, but we come into Q1, you have different categories that have different demands, different needs, new year, new you. That sales velocity, that unit velocity that Amazon's realizing, they're going to be inundated with inventory, so that they're not slowing down. But you may see that in the short term. So, but yeah, it brings it. I'm immensely biased, but it brings it back to data, right? Quantifying some of the things in your business to where you really can see, okay, we're able to meet these demands. We are taking our listing and Amazon presence to this full potential, and really being able to quantify that keyword ranking, sales velocity, revenue generated, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and there's so many metrics that sellers and for that point, brands and businesses, I think, really have to keep a handle on, make sure that they're monitoring that. Data and a great tool to help aggregate that, and as you just said, kind of hone in on those few actionable items. I think are really going to help sellers master Q4 and set themselves up for new year, new them in 2021.
Right. As the sellers themselves. Yeah. Maybe exactly. They're buying up the supplements and looking prim and proper coming into the new year.
And so two things you mentioned, and I know we were talking about, are the actual items that sellers can take here in Q4, to set themselves up, right? To make sure that into 2021, they have a business that's sustainable. Maybe they're not going to face some of the challenges they did here. Can you talk about some of those actionable items and maybe a few keys to success that you see that sellers can really take with them right now to set themselves up?
Yeah. One point I touched on, which I would definitely emphasize, is really understanding your performance at the keyword level for any one of your ASINs on Amazon. Again, keywords really make up that Amazon real estate. It captures buyer intent, and it brings a potential customer with that strong buyer intent ready to buy your product. So having those insights at the keyword level is immensely important. And one of the tools that we've sort of redeveloped, we've revisited, is a tool called R2A. It's termed that for real reverse ASIN. It's a really great way of conducting keyword research, where you're looking at ASINs on Amazon products and finding out what keywords that they rank for. But then you can analyze the data a little bit deeper and look at keywords that are potentially in brand analytics, the best source of data from Amazon. It's kind of the olive branch of like, here's truly the best data for specific search terms and keywords. But not only that, it can also give you insights as to how your ASIN is competing relative to some of your top competitors, whether it's a one-to-one, you're looking at who's kind of kicking your butt, for lack of a better phrase, on Amazon for their presence, and see how are you doing? How are you ranking for that keyword? Are you tracking that keyword at bare minimum? Do you have that visibility? So TJ, I don't know if you want to share that dashboard just so folks can get a sense
Sure.
of what it looks like. Obviously it's data centric, so it may look like a lot at once. But what I mentioned in terms of being able to compare your ASIN, if you see towards the top right, you can see my ASIN, and that breakdown really gives you an understanding of how your ASIN. Again, this is a big missing piece that we saw, whether it was keyword research methodologies or even tools of running a reverse ASIN and doing it irrespective of your ASIN. It's kind of counterintuitive. It's almost like bringing in the other 50% of the equation, where you really get to see, okay, how am I doing? And then how am I doing, and what do I need to do next? Things like, again, tracking keywords, prioritizing your ranking efforts, running your PPC, all kinds of really powerful insights that you can glean from R2A. So would definitely encourage folks to check it out, because in Q4 right now, that visibility, again, at the keyword level is so important. And those are the big things that we solved, is missing the best data like brand analytics, seeing how you're performing relative to your ASIN, doing so then with accurate data, and then making it actionable. How do you know what to do next? More often than not, data is great. Again, we're data people, but just seeing numbers on a paper isn't really enough. It needs to turn into a next step, a task, and be truly actionable. So R2A is immensely helpful for that.
And that's the link below that we popped up, Seller.Tools /rebate-automation. Is that the best free tool I think you mentioned, right?
Well, and rebate automation. So this is geared towards the way that we utilize ManyChat. So, and there is a bunch of free resources and information here as well. And to your question, Ben, this would be kind of the second thing I would tell sellers to be thinking about, is how they use things like ManyChat. Because like I said, it really, for us, running things like PPC and those types of things, it's great. But as we see Amazon create this really diverse mix of ad types, different reports every single day, it's a lot for, again, a lean operation to really stay tapped into and do it at an expert level. So for me, the way that I've approached PPC for a number of brands is really offloading it, is finding a subject matter expert that I can give clear KPIs, let them own and manage it, and let them manage all that evolution. It's kind of like all those moving pieces. Put that on your plate. I'm going to focus on this. And this is where I encourage sellers to think about things like ManyChat, because the ROI is just so exceptional, where we move one unit and that one unit can translate into greater ranking. So we can end up on page 1, potential for capturing a review. We're obviously building our list because we're engaging that customer via ManyChat. And so it just checks off so many boxes where PPC may have just give us a transactional ROI, not a bigger picture rank review list building. But yeah, and to that link that you're sharing now, TJ, that has all kinds of free ManyChat flows that folks can check out, and it covers a number of specific objectives. Whether it is things like rebates, whether it is BOGOs, buy one get one offers, whether that's gamified giveaways, or whether that's even just sharing single-use promo codes. You're running a promotion, maybe you ran a Prime Day promotion. We've got flows that really cover a wide gamut of Amazon strategies.
And so if I'm a seller and I'm not familiar with these strategies you're talking about, or maybe I have one product and I'm thinking about bringing on a second product, or I have a few different products, would you say these strategies are best for sellers that just have 1 or 2 products, or are they best for sellers that have multiple products? As you mentioned, maybe the 27 or the 28 within their brand, and they know that they have customers that enjoy their brand and enjoy their family of products.
Yeah, no, I think our thought process too, and it's pretty rare in my experience to see like free ManyChat flows. And we sort of knew that going in, is that we knew there may be really small teams that see all of the potential, everything I touched on, they want that in their business for Amazon. But the biggest problem is creating something out of nothing. And if you've got a flow in hand, you're really 30 minutes, you're an hour away, even as an absolute beginner, to get in there, understand what the strategy that's being implemented. And thankfully, ManyChat has actually kind of evolved alongside some of the tools that we've created, to where their template process, when you add in a flow, it literally is 2-3 minutes. It's very quick. It's adding in ASIN, it's adding in number of units you want to give away as an example, or any links that you want to use. So it's gotten to be very beginner friendly. But I would just encourage also evaluating some of the other activities in your business too, because in terms of an 80-20 analysis, at the core of an Amazon FBA business, ranking and reviews is really at the core. If you have other things that are reliably giving you those outcomes, you may want to go deeper there. But ManyChat is just it's so strong in that area. So very intuitive. If you can deploy the resources, or you need to cut off, maybe delegate, automate some other activities. But it's just so high value, even for that 1 or 2 SKU seller.
So do we want to just bring up the one screen share that you shared about all the ManyChat options?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this touches on each one of those panels, I'll call it, covers a specific ManyChat flow. So we've got, I think, roughly a dozen there that touches on a few different strategies, whether it's, again, simple things like coupon code distribution is there. We have the Wheel of Discounts, so gamified giveaway, really fun way of gamifying the process. One of the powerful things with ManyChat is that obviously when you're used to Amazon of like not knowing who your customer is or how they're interacting with your detail page or what they're doing at all, taking that in the juxtapose that to ManyChat, where who they are, they communicate with you. You can obviously automate that communication, and a gamified giveaway is just kind of a cool way of almost not necessarily getting to know them more, but having a greater interaction and more engagement than what you're accustomed to as an FBA seller. So really cool ways of using that. And then like creating MCF replacement order, another free ManyChat flow. This is really where you have some advanced strategies where, let's say negative review mitigation. Somebody has a poor experience. You can send them through the create MCF replacement order flow. They actually create a MCF order themselves, multi-channel fulfillment order. So a customer is supporting themselves. You're building your list because you're engaging with them, and you're doing it all in an automated fashion. So it really is powerful. Some powerful stuff. And then obviously, if you're mitigating negative reviews, we all want less of those. We'd much rather support our customer and kind of match what Amazon does. I mean, you guys probably know Amazon, if they see any issues, it's like, how do we make this good? How do we send you a new product? How do we give you Amazon credit? And ManyChat can kind of give us that fold in our business where, in an ironic way, we're sort of supporting our customers the same way that Amazon would.
I think what's important is to focus on the automation of it and the scalability. As Ben talked on, whether you have one product or 27 SKUs or 100 different SKUs, is you want to be able to stay as lean as you mentioned, in terms of headcount and staffing and whatever that looks like, but still be able to grow and have the fuel behind that to do that.
Right. No, absolutely. That's a big part of it. It is being able to not it being a foregone conclusion that you're going to need a team of 10, 20 people to be able to really scale a 7 and 8 figure business. I've sort of seen that. I get really intrigued by that, where I see business owners go two completely different ways, where very lean operators, data driven, automation focused, and sometimes they can get quite technical. I'm not saying that's essential. And then other folks that will go, how do I grow my team as fastly as possible to scale this business? That the number of people in your team is really required to scale. But I think it goes to show you can kind of do either one. Right. Ultimately, if you see what levers you need to pull that give you the most predictable outcomes, and constantly do that 80-20. We do that in our business, and whether it's brands, whether it's in Seller.Tools, but constantly conducting that to where you cut off the waste, move to automate the important pieces. And if you can automate the high value stuff, that's when you're playing a whole different game.
So I think the tools are great, as you just said. You can automate your business and grow it, or you can try to scale it and grow it as well. And not that they're the only two solutions there, because as we know, sellers who are developing brands, who are developing businesses, who are trying to acquire those customers, there's no one solution. Because I think if there was, then everyone would read the playbook and jump in. Right. But with that, we're going into a very different Q4 than anyone I think has experienced in the past, whether those are consumers or retailers. We just had Prime Day, which I think I'll admit, I think maybe I'm allowed to admit, I'm not sure, was a heavily indexed participant of. I bought all the picture frames and deals that I could think of here. Maybe regret giving my girlfriend the credit card so she could help purchase some of those. But as we head into holidays, sellers are gonna have to worry about inventory. They may have to worry about supply chain. You mentioned limits and FBA. What are some of those considerations or tips that you have for sellers? Maybe as they're worried about Q4, worried about indexing or ranking, or on the other side, just expecting to knock it out of the park for holiday.
Yeah, no, I would say if you're not already, I mean, obviously now that we're getting into, almost a third through Q4, now is a good time to sort of look at your business and apply a little bit of systems thinking, that up and slightly removed, where you're really looking at things and thinking about what has run predictably in the past, and play through a few worst case scenarios, maybe where inventory shortages, or a supplier lets hey, we're going to be running low, or you're at this place in the queue. And again, I'm empathetic. I'm seeing this too with brands that we're bringing online. We know this. It can be the case, and try to fold in a few contingencies, whether that's, again, over ordering, engaging with your supplier. Maybe you have your monthly check-ins. Can you escalate that to a weekly of, hey, we want to stay engaged with you. What do you need from us? How can we support you? What are ways that we can make our relationships more ideal? And some of that may require you to kind of extend the short-term thinking, I would say, of those types of relationships. Is there a way in which you can really excite your supplier? Can you create more incentives to really give you a bit more preference in that relationship? But I think it's, like I said, it's a good time to sort of take a step back, look at how things are operating, understand the context of things, where we have the somewhat inability to match the demand, but the demand ever increasing, and sort of see that in quarterly chunks. It's going to carry through to 2021. Like I said, we have the seasonality, we have category specific considerations, all of that good stuff. And then what I would also say is optimization excellence. I think, again, getting back to some of the basics with Amazon, many of us gravitated to FBA because of the inherent leverage it gives us. We're operating on the largest commerce platform to ever exist. So getting those pieces right and pulling the levers that Amazon wants you to, whether it's sales velocity, whether it's on-page optimization, whether it's getting your A plus or EBC, getting all of your assets on your listing really dialed in. Because at the same time, you may be experiencing an inundation of brand new customers, people that have never seen your brand before, seen your product, and make sure that that touch point is truly conversion ready, that you're visible, you get the traffic, and that you convert. It's it's kind of the digital marketing truism, traffic conversions, right? So those are the two key areas, is really having that excellence in your business. I'm a big fan of systems thinking, how things operate, and then kind of getting back to the roots of why you're in FBA. It's the leverage it affords you, and then what are the optimization levers that you may be underutilizing, or just need to ultimately revisit. Has it just been too long? It's kind of gotten by, but now we've got a bit of a shakeup here in Q4.
Yeah, and I think that, as you just mentioned, the operational excellence, the operational efficiency, leveraging the tools that we have in front of us to try to meet that demand. That I think you just said it perfectly. Demand is going to continue to increase, and supply is hopefully going to continue to increase as we try and meet that demand. And that, I think finding that sweet spot is where sellers are going to have a lot of success in Q4 and then in 2021 as well.
Yeah, no, agree completely. Agree. It's a great time. I mean, to be in e-commerce and in Amazon. I feel like every conversation I have, I feel like I'm the guy that's always speaking like gratitude. I'm so great. We're so grateful. We're so fortunate. But it's true at the same time, because there's a lot of more generalized economic uncertainty, and we're in a space where it's thriving. Like we're figuring out how to continue to match this ride the whale, get on Amazon, and then figure out how we just hold on for dear life and make the most of it. Right.
It's sure going to be exciting to see.
Yeah.
I know I'm excited. Troy, with that, I want to say thank you so much for joining us on our State of E-commerce. I know I've enjoyed learning a lot more about your journey and then the tools that you're providing to sellers. So with that, I just want to say thank you and give you the final word as we wrap up here.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. It's a really great opportunity, and glad to be joining everybody. I mean, what I would really say is kind of parting words is, hopefully for those that are, again, in this space right now, it's a prime opportunity for lack of a better phrase. But yeah, I think some of the points that we touched on are really big, sort of immediate takeaways. Things like, again, using R2A or your keyword research tool of choice is getting back to the basics, seeing where you're at. Some of those pieces, again, we can often overlook because we hear it a lot. We hear a lot in a number of different ways, but get those insights through the data, make sure that they're actionable, and then, kind of go through your business and see where are there some opportunities to not necessarily maintain, but maybe you also have that growth mindset. So, and I'm also just a big believer of reverse engineering success. Find somebody who's done something that you're striving to do with your business, whether it's just a cash flow lifestyle business or you're looking for a big exit. There are now plenty of examples, especially in our space, that you can see, and you can see what they've done and deploy that tactically. Really just literally follow that playbook in so many cases. So a lot of things where we're really primed and sellers are primed to have success. So hopefully everybody's having a great Q4, and it's a great time to be in the space.
Absolutely. And I think, it's like you said, it's just some actionable takeaways and something that, sellers can do today, whether it is Q4 or, if you're watching this and replay in a couple months, is, focusing on the data to make important decisions that drive the growth. You can see these conversions, you keep getting these sales, but you're not realizing that your actual cost is way higher and you're actually losing money. And, to touch on that is the data side. And then also to foray into next week, we have Scott Scharf from Catching Clouds with us to talk a little bit about the accounting side of things for an Amazon business, for an online business, because it does differ from your traditional brick and mortar retail business. So Troy, thank you so much for having us. For Ben and myself, I appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.